Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Mark. Excited to be here. Today, we're diving into something big from Meta Llama 4. It's supposed to be pretty impressive, right? Got some serious buzz.
Yeah, the buzz is definitely building. We're hearing about breakthrough multimodality, meaning it handles text and images like a pro. But there's also this little whisper of controversy. Like, did they maybe take some shortcuts?
Ooh, the plot thickens. Okay, let's start with the cool stuff first, though. So, Llama 4 is a big deal because of this native multimodality thing. What exactly does that mean for us, like lay people listening?
Okay, imagine giving a computer a picture and some words about that picture, and it understands both at the same time in a really deep way. Instead of having separate systems trying to make sense of each piece of information, Llama 4 integrates text and images right from the beginning. It's like it has one brain that can look and read simultaneously. It's what they call an early fusion architecture.
Right, early fusion. That's the key term. So it's not just slapping descriptions onto images, it's genuinely understanding the relationship between them. Like, you show it a picture of a cat on a mat and ask, "Where is the cat?" And it gets it, without having to separately analyze the image and then the text and then try to mash them together.
Exactly. It enables richer contextual analysis. Our sources mention it can do things like image captioning with better accuracy compared to some other models. Which, okay, sounds simple, but it's foundational for so much more complex stuff. But there's a catch. Apparently, they use some proprietary datasets for testing, which raises questions about transparency.
The transparency question always comes up in this space, doesn't it? But sticking with the tech for a second, Llama 4 also uses something called a mixture of experts architecture. This is pretty neat. So basically what's happening is, instead of one giant model that has to process everything, it has these smaller, specialized networks, the experts. And depending on the input, it only sends the data to the relevant experts. It's like having a team of specialists, instead of one general practitioner trying to do everything.
Okay, wait, let me get this straight. So the MOE, the mixture of experts, makes it more efficient, like faster and maybe cheaper to run?
Precisely. It reduces the number of active parameters needed for each task. Think of it like this. If you're asking about a math problem, it sends it to the math expert. If you're asking about a picture of a dog, it sends it to the image expert. You're not firing up the whole massive network for every single request. It improves inference speed and reduces computational costs. Our sources point to this as a big advantage, especially as these models get bigger.
That's good for Meta's bottom line, I guess. But how does that efficiency play into the cheating controversy we heard about? I mean, if it's just a smart way to structure the model, that doesn't sound like cheating. Or does it?
Yeah, that's where things get a little less clear based on the information we have. The initial prompt mentioned a controversial memo from Shopify's CEO about prioritizing AI. But that's not directly tied to Meta cheating in our sources. What Times mentioned, and could potentially raise questions, is the large-scale multilingual training.
Okay, multilingual training. Llama 4 was trained on over 200 languages, right? With over 1 billion tokens each?
Right. That's massive scale. Training on such vast, diverse datasets, while making the model incredibly powerful and practical for global use, does open the door to questions about data sourcing and privacy. How was all that data collected? Was it all above board across all those languages and cultures? That's where some ethical concerns could arise, as noted in our sources. And for instance, were communities whose languages are less represented online appropriately credited or engaged? Could there be cultural biases baked in from the training data?
So the potential cheating might be less about a deliberate act of rigging something and more about the implications of using such enormous, diverse datasets. Like, did they have an unfair advantage because of the sheer volume or type of data they had access to, perhaps bypassing some ethical considerations along the way?
It seems that way, from what our sources provide. There's no smoking gun in these materials detailing specific cheating allegations in the sense of, copying a test. The controversy appears to stem more from the scale and methods, particularly around the multilingual training and potentially the proprietary data used for benchmarks. Critics might argue that using proprietary benchmarks limits reproducibility for others, making it harder to verify their claims, which is a valid point in scientific rigor.
Okay, that makes more sense. It's less about rigging the system and more about raising questions about the process and potential implications, especially ethical ones related to data sourcing and privacy across different regions. And speaking of implications, what kind of real-world applications are we looking at with Llama 4? Beyond just better captions, which, don't get me wrong, is helpful.
Oh, the applications are significant. Multimodality opens up a lot of doors that were previously harder to push open. Think about education. Interactive learning tools that can analyze diagrams alongside text descriptions the student provides. Or healthcare. Automated systems that can interpret medical images, like X-rays or scans, and patient notes simultaneously to assist doctors. It's well suited for anything that requires understanding both visual and textual information together. Our sources 3 and 4 mention image analysis and generating detailed captions, which are foundational for many complex applications like these.
And because it's multilingual, it has real potential for global impact in those areas, right? Breaking down language barriers in education or healthcare access, making information more accessible worldwide?
Absolutely. That multilingual support, across 200 languages with 12 supported natively from release, addresses a huge need for practical global deployment. Models like Scout and Behemoth are just the start, and they have a knowledge cutoff in August 2024, which means they're pretty current on world events. Up until then, anyway.
So bringing it back to the controversy briefly, is there any comparison to how other models, like, say, an earlier version of ChatGPT or DeepSeek, handle these multilingual or multimodal aspects? Do they face similar questions about data or methods?
Comparison is important here. While our sources don't go deep into a direct technical comparison with DeepSeek, they do mention Llama versus ChatGPT as a topic covered 3. Models like the standard ChatGPT were primarily text-based initially before adding multimodal capabilities, and the integration approaches differ. The scale of Llama 4's times primitive times multimodality and the sheer volume of vast multilingual training are likely what puts it in a different category and why it attracts this kind of scrutiny. Competing models might use different architectures or data collection methods, which would lead to different sets of questions. For example, are their times multilingual datasets fully transparent? It's a challenge across the board. 3.
It sounds like the scale and the integrated, native approach are what set Llama 4 apart and also what fuel these ethical and transparency discussions. What about the future? What's next for Llama 4?
They're already talking about a reasoning version, which sounds promising. A model more focused on complex problem-solving and logical deduction. 2. And we can expect to see it integrated into more of Meta's tools and services, and hopefully adopted more widely by developers. As they expand language support beyond the initial 12 and refine the models, the capabilities will only grow. The fact that models are being released with open-source fine-tuning capabilities also suggests a push for wider adoption and community involvement, which is generally a positive sign for future development and potentially addressing some of those transparency concerns.
So in summary, Llama 4 is a significant step forward with its native multimodality and efficient architecture, offering exciting possibilities for real-world applications, potentially revolutionizing fields like education and healthcare. The cheating aspect, based on our available info, isn't about deliberate foul play, but rather the ethical and transparency questions that arise from training on such massive, diverse datasets, and potentially using proprietary benchmarks. It's more about the process than necessarily a rigged outcome.
That captures it well, Jenny. It's a powerful tool with a lot of potential, but also a reminder that with powerful technology comes, a lot of questions about where the data came from and how it was trained. The ethical landscape of ASI development continues to evolve just as quickly as the technology itself. It's a constantly moving target.
Definitely. And it raises interesting questions for listeners. Like, would you be comfortable using an AI built from images and text from your community, even yours, if they didn't explicitly ask for permission first? Something to think about. We'll keep having these conversations as these models get more sophisticated. Thanks for breaking down the technical side for us, Mark.
Anytime, Jenny. It's always fun to dive into this stuff, even the complicated bits. And thanks to all our listeners for joining us and pondering those tough questions with us.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.